Well, happy Tuesday evening to everybody out there. Welcome to another episode of Second and Saints. I'm John Hendricks alongside Ross Jackson, the two guys that probably got the most crisp today from the sun. Maybe I don't know. Is that accurate?
I
Maybe not, or
don't know,
anything like
man.
that.
I've been starting my sun training a little bit early, so I was doing all right out there. But I don't know. We stood in the sun a lot more. Like a lot of people went to the shade. We stood in the sun quite a bit.
Yeah, look at these dummies,
I will
right?
say
You
that.
know.
Look at these idiots.
But appreciate you guys tuning in Tuesday evening. We're obviously here to talk about Saints OTAs and fun stuff there. And of course, if you got questions, bring them because we'll answer as many as we can as we talk through everything. But Ross, big deal. We saw rookie mini camp. Obviously, some things happened. We had the schedule release, and then
Yep.
now this is just one step closer to football. Just one more step closer to football. And I get it. OTAs, there's it seems like there's not a lot, but man, this is the most people I think I've ever seen at an OTA session ever in my years of
Yeah,
covering this
man.
thing. Like, I mean, there was people I ain't never seen or people I ain't seen in forever, and I'm like, man, what's going on here? But hey, everybody's excited about this time. But what's your general sense of thought when it comes to OTAs?
Yeah, I think the excitement of like the media presence and everything like that is matched by the excitement of the players, the coaching staff, and all that. You can just kind of feel it in the air. We talked last time after rookie mini camps about kind of the intensity that was there. I think that intensity was still there as well, but you can really kind of feel the excitement. Like talking to Derek Carr and everything, which we'll get. I got that video. We'll get that up here on Second and Saints as well as elsewhere and everything. But like he was just talking about how exciting everybody in the room is, or how excited everybody in the room is, how the new system is kind of excited and kind of reinvigorated everybody too. So I think that like you can feel a lot of that when you're roaming around the locker room and everything too. The only thing that didn't happen was that Colin Saunders, he had his boombox ready, but he didn't he
Man,
didn't play it. So no music in the locker room, which is great for like the social media team and everything like that. But yeah, that was the only thing that we were missing. But they had it ready. Like the boombox was there. It was present.
he was jamming. He was jamming out later, man. He was going old
Yeah.
school too, man. It was some good stuff. Bobby Brown, all that stuff. Like, I mean,
Ooh.
Big's got a good playlist, that's for sure. So he knew, taking over from Malcolm Roach because Malcolm used to be that big guy
Right.
that did that. So it's good. But yeah, I'm with you, man. OTAs is a fun starting point, and I think maybe where we can start is looking at attendance. And I don't know if you got your notebook handy. And of course, we've
Yep.
written plenty, but got a couple of pages of notes just so you know that we actually do pay attention. We do a lot of this stuff here,
We
but
take notes in class.
we do take notes in class and we do get tested on them. But just running down the list of names that weren't there. And of course, some of these we knew were not that
Yep.
surprised. Some of them are injury related, and there's a lot to talk about. But Stanley Morgan Jr. wasn't there.
Mhm.
Jamaal Williams, Marshon Lattimore. We'll talk about him plenty here shortly. Alvin Kamara, Nephi Sewell, that's ACL related. We wouldn't expect to see him. Jalen Ford had the sports hernia surgery, so he wasn't out there.
Mhm.
Nathan Latu wasn't out there again, but he was in the locker room, so at least that's a positive sign. Weren't expecting Ryan Ramczyk. We know that. And then Tano wasn't there, Nathan Shepard, and then Chase Young, which is another one, and then Kool-Aid McKinstry. So out of 90 players, 12 weren't there.
Yeah.
Any surprises from that? Because I was a little bit surprised that Taysom was there. He doesn't traditionally do OTAs, and so I think it speaks volumes that a lot of these guys showed up.
Yeah, to me, that was the surprising part was how many guys were present. Now, don't get me wrong, there's a new system. And so maybe that's something that, particularly over on the offensive side, kind of encourages these guys to be around. But the ones that I was most surprised about being there were guys like Taysom that you mentioned, even Nick Saldiveri to an extent, who was coming off that shoulder injury and everything like that, spent the offseason rehabbing. I was at least surprised to see him out there and participating, not only participating, but getting some pretty meaningful reps that we'll talk about here in a little bit. But those are really the ones that were most surprising to an extent. The guys that were all missing, I guess maybe Jamaal Williams is the most surprising, but I don't think
Yeah.
veteran running backs not participating in voluntary OTAs is all that surprising because he could have been in like the classroom environment, right? The inside stuff, things like that. He could be at the facility, but we just didn't see him out on the field. And when you're a 20, I'll say 27+ year old running back, don't go out there during OTAs. Like you'll be fine. You'll figure it out. It's okay. Like you ain't got to be all out there. And then so that might have been the one that would be the quote unquote most surprising for me, but not at all like super surprising at all.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure AK is out of the country. That's first thing.
Yeah.
And then I think Tano is also out of the country. Like Tano usually goes I forget if it's Ghana or Uganda every year and stuff. I mean, so it's one of
It's
those.
Ghana.
All right, some of them aren't that surprising, but the big thing is that I think they were represented well. Some players were off to the side, guys like Nate Peterman, Mark Evans, and Tommy Hudson. And so, and then Oli Udo was working off to the side and working on getting back. He's coming off surgery as well. And so I think overall it was pretty good attendance for OTAs because this is strictly voluntary. You don't have to be here, right? And so I think does say a lot of things. And you talking about Derek Carr and some of his comments that he said. I mean, that guys are generally excited, and I think there's a lot of reason to be excited because of this offense. And I mean, there's just so much packed into what we were out there maybe 2 hours, I guess, as so much information packed into the day, and then what DA said, and so. Sticking with those, let's talk about Marshon. We've been talking about this for months. We've talked about why he wasn't going to get traded. We talked about he wasn't going to get traded in the draft. It didn't make sense. Talked about, okay, if they're going to trade him, maybe it's post June 1st. But DA talks yesterday at the Saints Hall of Fame Golf Classic, and he was telling us that, he had a conversation with Marshon within the last 2 or 3 weeks, and things were it was a positive conversation. And today, it said we're moving forward, and then today is like we're just waiting on him to come back, and we're going to welcome him with open arms. But this is a good direction. And again, Marshon could still get traded. We understand that, but as we've kind of said, Marshon is supposed to be in the plans, and that this team was going to work on building that bridge back. But man, what does it mean if they can get a Marshon back in the building? Not only just Marshon back in the building, but a guy who's ready to get a chip on his shoulder. Because I remember hearing from some of the guys and saying that, I talked to Tyron. I brought this up the other week. Is that Tyron talked to me? He's like, he's got like this chip on his shoulder because people aren't talking about Marshon Lattimore anymore in the top elite corner. So, man, what are they going to get if he does come back and he is the guy?
Well, I mean, he makes your team better. That's the big thing. Like if they trade away Marshon Lattimore, the team gets worse. They keep Marshon Lattimore, the team gets better. And the reason why I say the team gets better is because you've also added Kool-Aid McKinstry to the mix, who I didn't mean the pun there. Mix Kool-Aid, I get it. But they've added him to the conversation there. And we don't know just yet because I like to put all rookies on an unknown. We're starting off hot today. I like to put all rookies kind of on the unknown spot. And so is he going to be better than Isaac? Yeah. Is he going to be better than Isaac Yiadom? We don't know yet, but it feels like a guy that's drafted in the second round could probably be that guy, right? Or at least be starter caliber. So for me, keeping Marshon Lattimore in the building in 2024, especially if he can be out there for all 17 games. And again, I refuse to put the injury prone tag on Marshon because I don't think that a lacerated kidney or getting rolled up on is really indicative of your ability to stay healthy. You know what I mean? And so I think if you get him and you've got him here in the building and he's out there and he's your starting guy and Paul Adebo out there, and then you figure out what's going on in the slot with Alontae Taylor, I think you're just a better team having Marshon Lattimore there. And if you get a Marshon Lattimore that's got something to prove out there, that feels like he's got something to prove, which compounds with people not talking about him within the top cornerback conversation, but also compounds with the injury tag that he's been getting, I think that makes your team better. And that helps your offense because you're able to take the ball away. If you can get the pass rush going because of your coverage, that ends up making that part of the defense better, so on and so forth. Like the ripple effect is just insane. And it's really, really good. And so I think that's the best possible scenario for New Orleans, is that they keep him through 2024. And if they want to move on from him after 2024 and potentially trade him then sure, you can make those decisions. But as of right now, that just feels like the right thing for the New Orleans Saints and is what's going to make them better in 2024 at the very, very least.
Yeah. And Alan also saying that, look, we talking about, and you even asked him saying about, is it safe to say about the 2024 roster? Yeah. Yeah. And then just even the fact of the conversation, the nature of the conversation that, hey, there's been some trade conversations. Let's just talk. Let's clear the air. Let's just talk. And so again, you need him on this roster this year. Now, after this year, whatever happens, because they already have to worry about paying Paulson Adebo, and right. Marshon possibly could get traded. If Marshon has a good year, which you would hope, that might give him a little bit of a bargaining chip too. But if he comes in, he is hurt again, which I agree with you. I don't call that injury prone. I call that bad luck. And playing out of position. I've been saying that too, and it's just like I don't think it's fair to say that. And like, yeah, I get it, but you might say somebody like an Andres Pete was injury prone, which again, it wasn't necessarily his fault, but then that might stick a little bit. But Marshon got hurt from friendly fire and playing out of position, so. But again, getting him back in the mix, that would be tremendous. And of course, what we saw in OTAs, just a base look. So you had Alante on the outside, you had Paulson on the outside at left side, Tyron and Jonathan Abram, not Jordan Howard, back there at safety. I don't think we were too surprised by that. I think that was probably expected. You know, your baseline backers, Willie Gay Jr., which we expected that. Demario in the middle,
he's fast,
Warner.
dude.
Whoo,
Man,
he
he's
is fast.
That's
a
incredible.
ball of energy. Let me tell you, I can't wait. I think they got. I said it about Bub Means, and we can agree on that. They got a lot of ball of energies, or balls of energies in the team this year, and so I really am excited. But yeah, I think that was a big takeaway. Just seeing how fast Willie Gay Jr. was up and close and personal, and then. Defensive line, you got Carl on the outside, Peyton Turner. We rotate a little bit with Isaiah Foskey. I got to talk to him in the locker room, man. He's ready. He's excited. He feels really good this year. And so obviously he's battling the injuries last year. And, you know, as far as inside, Khalen Saunders and Kendall Vickers, that was the other one that was there. And so if you want all the details, go on Saints News Network, si.com/NFL/Saints, shameless plug, and check out all of our stuff there. It's got everything you need to know about today, but we want to talk about it too. So, man, just overall impressions of today. What, if I asked you what's maybe your top 2 or 3 takeaways from the day, what would you say?
The offense already looks so much more diverse, and therefore, in my opinion, better, right? The observations that we had during rookie mini camps about the energy and the intensity and the attention to detail of the coaching staff, that was back again. So we've confirmed that now, and it's repeatable, right? And then probably like my last big takeaway was, just talking about more lineup stuff. Taliese Fuaga again at left tackle, and then Trevor Penning at right tackle. And we'll see if that's going to be the long-term solution in terms of what it is that they want to do, or if that's just information gathering. I think that those 3 were my biggest takeaways of the day outside of the Marshon Lattimore situation.
Yeah, I would agree. I think the offense is probably the biggest thing that stuck out to me, because I got to be honest with you. I was not rolling in there today expecting to see play action and motion. I just wasn't. And I think
usually this is vanilla season.
Yeah, this is a vanilla, regular, bland, saltine cracker. I mean, not even saltine. You ain't got the salt on it. It's just a cracker. You know what I mean? Like, that's all it is. And so to come in there and then be able to see some motion and also see efficient use of motion. Like, you had guys like Xander Horvath going in motion. You had Dallin Holker, which again, I think he was a standout from today. He came in on motion play and then was able to get across the formation of field and get it wide open from Jake Haener. And I think Haener was one of my top guys.
Oh, Haener too.
Jake Haener looked outstanding. You go ahead.
I was gonna say he had the 3 best plays of the day. Like all 3 of the biggest plays of the day came from Jake Haener.
Yes. Yeah. Look, and it was just his footwork, his precision, his timing, time on task, all that stuff. And look, I understand there's no pads and all that, but you can't get excited about what Bub Means catches or what Spencer Rattler does without pads and then say, well, it was just no pads with Jake Haener. But he looked comfortable. He looked like a guy that knew what was going on. And I think that was the biggest takeaway, is he looks a lot more confident. And I think that's something, Derek Carr said, and every rookie you talk to in their second year, it says the game slows down for them. And I think that was big for Jake, is that, you see his footwork, you see his precision. I mean, that dime he threaded in there to Chris Olave with pretty good coverage was a real beautiful. And then the other one on a play, nonetheless, that the snap was high to begin with. So it was kind of like, this is kind of a little bit crazy. But, I think the offense, the tempo there, that was excellent to see. I think the stuff we saw from Jake Haener was a big thing as well. I don't want to get too off in the weeds because I said Dallin Holker, but let's talk about Lou Hedley for a second.
Okay.
He had 2 punts that didn't look that great, right? You did all the stopwatches, and again, all the stuff is there, but you got a guy that, was punting pretty well today. I mean, you're talking about 4 5s to 4 9s, and he looked like he was doing a lot better.
Looked pretty good. And the thing that was really interesting is that they weren't the rugby style punts. They were just straight
Right.
punts, the way that you picture them in an NFL game. And so I'm curious about what that is. Like, is that something that they're wanting him to do now and do less of the rugby style punts? Or is it just like a, hey, we're in practice, here's an opportunity for you to like do this style punting? It might be the latter, but I'm really interested to see, like, if Lou Hedley continues as the punter. Remember, he's got competition now with Matt Hayball coming in from Purdue or Villanova. My apologies. I knew it was one of them black and gold schools. Vanderbilt. God,
Yeah.
Goodness. Yeah, Villanova is not even
Purdue's
black and blue. That's blue and white. So yeah,
I told you it's
Vandy,
that sun.
I know I'm drained. No, but coming in from Vandy, like it's one of those things where like I'm just real curious about whether or not they look at Lou Hedley now and say, okay, cool. Now you've got both of these styles of punting under your belt. And does that make him, a greater asset and stuff? Because he was getting 50 plus yarders out. He was getting, like you said, 4.5 to 4.9 hang times, which is really good. Like anything above 4 is acceptable. That's going to give your coverage team time to get down there. But when you cross that 4.5 threshold, you're not getting returns typically at that point, unless your jammers are doing a fantastic job. But like outside of that, man, like I don't know. It's gonna be interesting to see like what that means. Now they're gonna rotate these guys. So today was a Hedley groupie day. Tomorrow will be Hayball as well as Charlie Smyth, and then we'll see what we get to see next week. But I wasn't not impressed with what I saw from Hedley today.
Yeah, and I mean the fact is, I mean he was nailing those coffin corner kicks. He was nailing them inside the 5, inside the 10. I mean, it was doing a pretty good job. And again, we expect a punter competition. I know this is probably not the reason you tune in to talk about Saints OTAs, but it is a piece of information. It is something that is something to pay attention to. And again, we're not going to claim to know we know everything, but you want to know what happened. We want you to know what happened. And so don't be surprised if you'd be like, okay, well, this is where it started, that he's not doing that Aussie style kick, or he's not doing this, that he's bringing up some certain things. And so, and Bro City brings it up. It's OTAs, but good things are moving though. It's just good to have football back, man. Man. It's another step towards actual practice, and it's exciting in a lot of aspects. But again, you look at how today unfolded. I think you touched on a couple of things, but I think A.T. Perry and Dallin Holker on offensive side, like those guys, and of course Olave, but I'm going to give you a chance because I want you to you talked to Keith Williams today, the wide receivers coach. And so when we talked about him the other week, just the camaraderie he has with Bub Means or some of the other guys, like it's fascinating to see how easily he's winning over those players. And he's just got here, right? I mean, this is a guy who's been in the league with Baltimore for a good bit, but you got to talk to him, shed some light on what he said, and just kind of some of the takeaways that you had from talking to him.
Yeah, I asked him pretty specifically about exactly that, like his ability to create connections with his players, because anytime that you hear anybody talk about him, the conversation isn't just ever about the coaching and the product that he helps to build out on the field. It's always about his ability to be able to relate to players within his position group. And so I asked him, like, what is it that allows that to happen? And his first answer was, well, I'm still silly. Like, I'm just a silly person and everything like that. And so like, he talked about like building these guys up and like celebrating with them and like joking around with them and everything like that. And he also mentioned what I thought was really interesting was, building around this idea that like he's kind of been there before. Like he was talking about how he, when he went to college and then going undrafted and being in a doghouse and being a starter and all these other things, like doing all these things that these guys are presently dealing with. I think that moves the needle quite a bit. I mean, everybody loves a player coach, right? A coach that has also played the position or played the game or whatever it might be. And I think that, Coach Dub or Keith Williams really just kind of exemplifies all of that. talked about the maturity of always needing to grow, mentioning it like Derek Carr is still growing. These young receivers are going to continue to grow. Everybody's got to continue to grow. And kind of mentioning too that like once you lose the desire to grow and the desire to improve, then that's typically when your career kind of ends. I'm paraphrasing there, but like those are the things that eventually weed you out of the NFL. And so he sees a lot of that hunger, that desire in those wide receivers. He still has a lot of hunger and desire. He considers himself egoless, which I think makes a really good coach, because the coach isn't, Keith Williams is not in it to climb a ladder to eventually become a head coach or eventually become an offensive coordinator or anything like that. He's there to make these players better and to help them realize their dreams. And I think that that type of an approach from a coach goes a really, really long way with these younger players.
Yeah, and shout out to him and Rob for wearing all black and long sleeve hoods and long pants.
Crazy.
I couldn't do it, man. I couldn't do it, man. Unless I was trying to sweat weight or cut weight in the sauna or something. Like, I mean, but I joke there. But again, it's evident. You see it on the field. You see him how he's teaching. You see how he's saying, nope, that wasn't good enough, or that route didn't work, or this didn't. You didn't get it. You didn't.
Yeah.
Their response is there. You know what I mean? And so again, he's somebody I think that is going to pay off in a big way. I think all of these offensive coaches are, I think
big time.
Everyone you look at, I think it's exciting. I've said that plenty of times that there's reasons to be excited. Now, does it all come together in week 2 when you play the Cowboys and week 3 against the Eagles? I don't know. Maybe not, but if it does, look out. You know what I mean? But at the same time, I think there's a lot to like. And I think the biggest things that in talking to Carr and talking to players and talking to other things, everybody feels like they're way ahead of where they were last year at this point. And I think it's a big deal. Like, I don't think it's just lip service. I think it's actually there is that you see more chemistry, more team building, more of this, more involvement, more, hands on deck. And I think this time on task, attention to detail, all of this stuff. And I think it's super exciting as fans to know that. And then for us just to be able to see it come together.
Yeah, for sure. 100%. And look, we know that it's early and everything like that. So we're not trying to we're not trying to steer a hype train here, but if you wanted to know whether or not the right building blocks were in place for this team to improve, it's looking like it. I think that's the biggest, like most important kind of like realistic takeaway to take from all this stuff. We'll see if they're able to capitalize on it on the field. We're not going to know that until they do it. And no preseason drive is going to tell you that either. It's going to have to be 17 games of a regular season that gives you that idea. And so we'll have to wait and see if that ends up being the case. But it certainly feels like they have the right personalities in the building. Now it's, can they take advantage of the talent? Because that was so much of what we talked about early on last year. That narrative got lost somehow halfway through the season because everybody kind of turned to disliking the players out of nowhere, or not out of nowhere, but eventually fan wise. And so I think like early on in the season, the biggest thing with it was this team is not or does not have the scheme that is taking advantage of the offensive talent that's on the team. I think we said that over and over again, John.
Yep.
And
Jimmy
now
Graham,
it's looking
Taysom
like,
Hill.
Right.
Use these
and
guys.
Now it's looking like that might finally be curved with the introduction of the new coaching staff that looks ready to be able to take advantage of the talent of the players that will still be on this field.
Yeah, and again, I'm glad you brought up, or we said Taysom, because I want to talk about that here in a second. And the offensive line, and guys, just remember this too. The offensive line, I've said this, and it's just a habit. You won't know jack about the offensive line and defensive line really until we get into training camp and the big boys pads come on. But I will say this: the offensive linemen, guys like Trevor, and then Cesar Ruiz said this on Monday, and Nick Saldiveri, they all look a lot more trim. They look like they've thinned up a little bit. And I think that's actually a good thing because you want some athleticism in this offensive line. And so like Caesar went from 325 to 314. That's a lot of weight to lose if you're an offensive lineman. And so, and I know he was one of the guys, he said, man, as soon as I heard the news, I was looking at booking a flight, get back to New Orleans so I can meet these guys. And so I think there's general excitement there. Same thing with John Benton, had glowing praise for Trevor Penning. Everything looks good right now. And so, it's a positive thing. Let me answer this question because I do want to talk about Taysom because that seems to be one of the hot ones. Roe asked about the kick returner, punt returner. So first of all, they didn't work on anything kickoff related. Now there are 10 practices. We get to see 3. So they could be
Right.
working on it tomorrow, and we don't know. But this is just what we see. And so they did work on punt returns. The guys I have here is Shaheed, of course. We know that Chris Olave was fielding some punts. Jermaine Jackson was another one that came in there. And then I think it was Cedric Wilson. Let's see, let me get there. Yeah,
Yep.
Cedric Wilson, and then Mason
Mason Tipton. Yeah.
Yep. And if you want an extra bonus on the punt protector, it was Ugo Amadi. That was Taysom some last year, and Smoke Monday even before that. So, Smoke Monday Hive, gotta talk about that.
Wow, what a pull.
Yeah. But yeah, for sure, man. But they do focus on special teams. It just wasn't as a lot. And again, I wrote about last week, or was it last week? I don't remember. Whenever rookie minicamp was, that Bresee said they are going to work a lot more on special teams. We will see a lot more special teams, mainly on this new kickoff rule. But I mean, Groupie looked good. He hit all 7 of his kicks. Hedley had some good boots to him. And so I was happy to see some of that stuff. But look, Taysom Hill, I picked up on this before. And people are also treating it like it's new information, but this is not the first time Taysom Hill's played fullback, right?
No,
but seeing him in the backfield playing the fullback, like he's been with the running back group, he's played fullback, and I actually pulled up the tweet. I'm like, yeah, this wasn't just my imagination. He was playing fullback, and Adam Prentice was behind him. And it was in August. It was a play on that, and so I don't say that to diminish this, but the thing I do want to talk about is the way that Dennis Allen was asked and talked about, could he be a Kyle Juszczyk type thing? And we saw guys like Xander Horvath going in motion. I brought this up on Eric Asher's show not that long ago. Is like, look, you get Taysom Hill in motion, that's going to scare a defense, right?
Right. Who
like,
moves?
What is this guy about to do?
Like it's going to be whoever moves with him is who's assigned to him. But then what are you doing? You're pulling a linebacker out of the box, and it frees up some space for the running backs to be able to get busy. Like there's so much of that. Or what we continue to see too, John, is this team attack the middle of the field in the passing game again. And so when you have a guy like Taysom who can pull a linebacker or a safety out of the middle of the field by motioning him from the backfield to out wide, then all of a sudden you're opening up cavities for you to be able to attack in the passing game. Like it has so much value in terms of your ability to be able to do that and utilize Taysom in a bunch of different ways. I'll give you my Taysom takeaway real quick. My Taysom takeaway was, it was very funny. It was Brett Martell from over at AP asked Dennis Allen whether or not the quarterback role for Taysom, so taking snaps at quarterback, whether run or pass, will be de-emphasized with the new system. And Dennis Allen just said, nope. Just hit him with a nope. Not going to be a thing. So I would absolutely expect to see, from what it sounds like, John, Taysom Hill's role maybe expand more than actually diminish. I don't think it's going to expand drastically, but I think it'll expand more than it will actually diminish going here into 2024.
Yeah, I mean, he was one of your only players that had a 20-yard run last year. I mean, you keep doing the QB powers. It will work. It will still work.
Yep.
Taysom Hill, people make fun of it and say, oh, this contract and stuff. They don't realize the 6 or 7 player positions he actually plays, whether it's the kick team, the punt team, tight end, wide receiver, fullback, what is it, quarterback power, all of that stuff. And it matters. And so again, it's people can easily criticize and say stuff from afar, but we know better, obviously. And so I'm excited to see Taysom, and again, him being there was really something. We got a fan here from Brazil. Shout out to Brazil. We got UK, we got Ireland, we got Brazil. And appreciate the support. We appreciate everybody's support. Don't forget to like and subscribe, guys. Our channel is just in its infant stages. We're trying to grow as much as we can, and it's only because of you guys. And so really appreciate all the support that we get. We love our fans. We're not above anybody, you know what I'm saying? And so we want to keep it on an even keel and such. So man, it's something to, I think if we look at continuing the offense, because I think the offense is a big thing. Again, with Jake Haener, talk about a little bit about Dallin Holker, maybe. Just overall, again, this is the guy we said is going to be everybody's darling, and in the rookie camp, he wasn't able to do anything, right? I mean, just nothing. But today, working with Jake Haener a good bit, we saw the Rattler Bub Means connection a little bit. We'll talk about Rattler. He had a pretty tough day, but Dallin Holker getting some work with the first team. I mean, that's kind of a big deal. Just like Fuaga was the starting right tackle, and he's a rookie. don't typically see that, but Holker, they have a clear vision for this guy, and it's not a coincidence. He got some real high undrafted rookie, guaranteed money, but he's a sponge. But seeing him do the types of things he did on the field and the ways that he can attack the field, maybe the Saints got something here.
Yeah, man. His catch radius is insane. That was one thing that was a lot of fun to watch. He caught all 4 targets that went his way, including the one that we mentioned from Jake Haener, which was on the play action rollout. So when we get to defense, try to remind me about this because I think this has value for the defense too. But and I'll try to remember. But running this play action rollout, play fake to the right side on the stretch run, which literally just means you stretch your arm out as the quarterback. Like, you just kind of give the more immediate path to get into the outside. And then the rollout over the outside shoulder back towards the right side of the field hits Dallin Holker, who's like all by himself, who, by the way, also went in motion before the snap. So we saw motion, play action rollout. Yep. And then target in the middle of the field on a crosser, like everything's there. It's all there. And then Dallin Holker, one of the other things that he does really well that not a lot of people talk about is his yards after catch ability, his run after catch ability. He can do something with the ball in his hands. He's not going to be, a guy that's going to be juking anybody out of their shoes or anything like that. At least not often, right? Even Drew Brees has a spin move or 2 in him, so we'll see. But he's one of those dudes that does a really good job of catching and then getting north and south, taking advantage of the green grass that's in front of him, choosing the right angles, things like that. So you got to see a little bit of that from him, which I really enjoyed. He had a couple other catches where he went down to the ground to make a catch at one point, all these other things. He just has he's got 35-inch arms, which is huge for a dude that's playing tight end at 6'3". And so it just opens up his, catch radius big time. And I think we got an opportunity to see a little bit of that, his athleticism, and then just a bit of a problem that he can be for defenses when he gets in motion, I think is something else.
Again, it's not like it's undefendable or unguardable or anything that, or, but at the same time, it does make a difference. And I think for the Saints offense, with the way that they want to go and the things that they've done in the past, this is a welcome change. This is something I think everybody can get on board for. And I think this all hinges on the offensive line, because if the offensive line isn't good, this is going to be a lot more painful. But I think the offensive line can do some things. I would expect to see a lot more Kendre Miller, who looked really good, by the way. We've got to remember Kendre wasn't participating this time last year. And so I think Kendre looks smooth. I think Kendre looks poised. And we've said it too, that I think by the end of it, I would expect Kendre to probably have more targets, more reps, more everything. And that's not a shot at Alvin or anything. I just think that
it's his time.
Yeah, it's just his time. And so and Greg brings up a highlight reel on Holker. Dallin Holker. I'm gonna call him Dalker from now on. Highlight reel showed him catch a lot of balls at Los. Yeah, I think that was one of the things that stood out to me when I was watching his film, is that he's a guy that, what I said is, he puts an emphasis on catching the ball first. And so, which sounds silly again, but that's real. What he's focused on, is making the catch, then worrying about everything else. And his awareness is really good. Like that one game where it was a Hail Mary, he had the awareness and position and made the catch that helped his team win. And so, Will says Saints NFC champs 40-1. Anyone? I'm not gonna take that.
Let's not go that far.
I said 9-8. I said I wasn't going anything over 9-8. I did my predictions, which weren't that good. I had them starting 3-6 to the year, which I hope that doesn't happen. But they got a lot of work to do here for that. But so man, I think we talked about the offense, talk about the offensive line a good bit. We've talked about, I'm trying to think who. Let's talk about Spencer Rattler. That was where I was going next. I remember. Not a good showing. I say not a good showing. Not as good of a showing as a rookie camp. Now, here's what I would say too. We saw motion and a lot more play action with Haener and Carr. We didn't see any motion with Rattler at quarterback. Just tempo wasn't there. Getting in and out of the huddle. They had some false starts. They had some get back in the huddle and doing it. His throws were a little high. He got picked off. And then the next play, he almost had one pick six from Isaiah Stallbird that, he had made a perfect read and jump on the ball. But, I guess I'd say Rattler didn't have as good of a day. He finished 4 of 8. Is this something we should really worry about because of the small sample size, or is this just a rookie quarterback adjusting to everything else that's going on?
Yeah, I think there's two big factors, right? Like Spencer Rattler is still adjusting to this game at the NFL level. And what they worked on at rookie minicamp is not exactly what they worked on at OTA. So some of this stuff was probably new for him. The other thing that I'll mention too is that this might have been his first time, probably was his first time when it came to um, doing team drills with the veterans that he hasn't been working with at all this offseason and stuff like that. So I would say that that's the other thing to keep in mind too, especially like in passes. He had that one pass that went up too high and everything. There were a couple of times where it felt like the timing might have been off on some of his passes and everything. Like, I think that's the thing. I think the thing that was a little bit concerning, and again, this is small sample size and this is me being nitpicky. Okay. But he puts that pass up too high. It gets picked off. The very next play, he lays out a pass that almost gets picked off again. Isaiah Stallberg could have, and that would have been 2 straight pick sixes, basically, on both of those. And so I think that's the one thing that you look at that's a little bit concerning, is you could tell that maybe the nerves got to him a little bit. It's not that the player that he was throwing to wasn't open by any means. It's just that where he located it, the tempo on the ball, like the velocity on the ball, allowed Stallberg to be able to go out there and make a great play on the break to go and do it. So I want to give Stallberg his credit there. It wasn't something to where it was like thrown directly to him or anything like that. He had to make a play on the ball, but Rattler left that open. So I think that there was a little bit of a like getting maybe a little bit shaken off that first interception that led to maybe we credited him for a lot of good decision making during rookie minicamp. I don't know that we saw that particularly as strong here against the veterans and things like that. So, I caveat all that with it's the first day of OTAs and we'll see how everything goes. You know what I mean? But I don't think that it's worth like pressing the panic button about, but I do think that little bit of a, like, did the nerves get to him a little bit? That might be the thing that I'll really be watching out of whatever the display was. And then his ability to get in and out of the huddle, which is just like, hey, you got to understand the tempo. At one point, it wasn't even that they got out of the huddle late. It's that they all got out of the huddle and then just kind of walked to their spot. And then Dennis Allen was like, how about we have some urgency? You know what I mean? And then so they redid it. I didn't say exactly what he said, but then they redid it. They brought them all back in. They all brought them all back in, and then they did it again. And so, like, I think that's the other thing too, is just understanding like what the expectation is. And these are the level of attention to detail things that we've been talking about since rookie mini camps as well.
Yeah, and to his credit, I will say this on Rattler, his last part of team drills was much better. Like, that's where he had a couple of connections to Holker. He should have had that connection to Bub Means. I mean, in Faion Hicks, he had one of the picks, but he also was holding Bub Means' jersey with that deep one down the sideline. That would have been called, and I thought Bub could have got that one. If he had made that catch, I think, or if that was a connection, maybe a little bit different outlook. And so, again, and the other part of it is Hayner's number 2, and then he had Spencer Rattler. And so, again, I know people have jumped out at the Rattler conversation. If I've seen people like week 17 against the Raiders, that's Spencer Rattler starting that game and stuff like that. It's like, guys, pump the brakes a lot. Like, you're not even in the same lane right now. Like, let's just hold on to this stuff. But I get it. The excitement's there. And I think Rattler can be special. But again, based off of what I saw from Jake Haener today, if Haener can keep playing like that, then I feel good about it. Now it's going to come down to the preseason because camp, I thought Haener looked great. I think he looked great during training camp. He impressed early, but when preseason came, he didn't look so hot. And so I think I'm looking forward to him being better in the preseason. And so they don't have that backup, set up. And Nate Peterman, he wasn't practicing. I don't know if it's injury related or not. We didn't really get an actual answer on that, but it's just something to keep an eye on as we have more OTAs, which again, we're going to get to watch 2 more. And then we have mini camp from the 13th to 15th of June. So not a ton of sample size that we get to see. So like I said, 10 practices, we get to watch 3. That's what we see. But in that time frame, we see a lot of information, a lot of stuff, and it's exciting. And so, man, defense, let's go there now. Cause I have this colorful note that says Ross defense with the faded Sharpie that you wanted to make a point there.
Yes. Thank you. That's awesome.
But I'd say defensively, we talked about Abram being there. And then of course this is a base look, no slot, they didn't go nickel. They didn't do anything like that. They got 1 turnover for sure. Actually, they got 2 because it was late in the team where Anthony Ori stripped and had a strip fumble recovery, and Khaleke Hudson got it too, and that was actually on Jordan Mims, which I thought Jordan Mims was running pretty well today too. I thought he was good in rookie minicamp, and I talked about him the other week.
That was his last carry
that was,
too.
No, that's tough to see. That was definitely tough to see for sure. So, but talk about your impressions and thoughts on the defense. Again, what we saw, what we didn't really see,
Yeah, well, I think I like that you highlight that what we saw was base defense, and I do think that we're going to see more base defense, not just out of the NFL or not just out of the Saints, but out of the NFL as a whole. Because the way that the NFL typically works is offenses do a thing, defenses counter that by doing a thing, and then offenses do a new thing, and then defenses counter with a new thing. So what we saw was offenses go really light, 11 personnel meaning one tight end, one running back, one tight end. First number is the number of running backs, second number is the number of tight ends. So you saw them go light, right? So you don't have two tight ends,
knowledge,
you don't have
is power.
Yes, you don't have two running backs, all those other things. And so like the offenses got lighter. And so that's where kind of the pickup of the nickel defense, which has 5 defensive backs on the field, became a thing because Sean McVay and these other guys started rolling out 11 personnel, 90-something% of snaps. And then the rest of the NFL defenses went, oh crap, we have to have a third cover corner now. And then there goes your development or further development. And really, you can go all the way back to like Mike Shanahan and Gary Kubiak actually for that. And then you saw guys like in Denver, actually, while they were doing all those things, you started to see some of those things grow years later. Chris Harris Jr. Was a big guy in Denver that really started the growth of the slot position. Bradley Roby also in Denver doing that same thing, so on and so forth. And so you saw that grow along. So now what we've seen over the course of the past few years is a lot less base defense of like 4-3 or 3-4. And you're seeing a lot more nickel defenses, which takes away a linebacker and adds a corner. So now because of that, becoming everybody's base defense effectively, offenses are going, you know what we should do? We should have 2 tight ends on the field. You know what we should do? We should have 2 running backs on the field because the defense is light, so we want to play heavy. And so now that's been happening over the course of the past couple of years where you're seeing more 21 or 12 personnel, 2 running backs, 1 tight end, 1 running back, 2 tight ends. And so now you're watching defenses go back to going, oh crap, now we need a third linebacker again. And so I think that's what you're going to see, not only from New Orleans, who have 3 very talented linebackers now, but also from around the NFL. The other thing that I'll mention that I observed is, we talked about how those play action rollouts and stuff like that aren't always like undefendable by any means. We actually saw an example of that on a scramble by Derek Carr that started off as a play action rollout to the right, thanks to Demario Davis, who took away the entire underneath option and effectively intermediate option by playing and running the lane in between the low option and the middle option. And therefore, Derek Carr had nowhere to go with the football, and so he threw it away. So I do think that when you talk about the mobile quarterback problem that the Saints have had, particularly dealing with quarterbacks that run those rollouts pretty well, I think the Saints might get a little bit better doing that because they're not going to be relying on just the scout team the week before the game, but this is the offense they're going to be practicing against all install, all training camp, and all week when it comes to what the Saints defense is looking to do. So those are 2 big standout things for me when it comes to what we saw from the Saints defense today.
Yeah, and the number one thing I told you was as soon as we looked and picked up on that, I said Jalen Hurts. And then you're going to get tested on that early, week 3, and that's what comes to mind. So I think defensively, yes. Let me answer these questions too before I get some stuff. Minicamp is at the facility. It will be at the facility for sure. Just doing that. And then the other question was competition. Yes, there will be competition, but we didn't see anything today. So I just want to answer those real quick.
But the reason why we didn't see anything on that is because they typically alternate. So today was Blake Groupie and Lou Hedley doing the kicking and punting, and then they'll alternate to the other guys probably tomorrow, and then they'll go day on, day off to give those guys a rest. So whoever's kicking and punting in a day are the only ones typically kicking and punting in a day.
Right. And I think defensively, sevens, it caters more to the offense when you do sevens, just like one-on-ones cater more to the offense, even though they make for great highlights and all that fun stuff. But give some love, Alontae Taylor, nice little pass breakup on Chris Olave with Derek Carr quarterback. I think that was one of the other things I noticed too. I think the other part is you're starting to see just a little bit of some of the vision for where some of these other guys are going to see. And of course, there's no Marshon there. I think I didn't see too much of Jordan Howden. I don't know if that was by design or not, but Jonathan Abram, man, I talked to him for a brief minute, but I think he's got a huge opportunity. But I think the speed, you brought up Willie Gay Jr. earlier, but man, the speed, and one of the reasons he was brought in is because of the mobile quarterback. He's really good against the mobile quarterback. And so you're not going to see much on the front lines, but I think when you get to the linebackers, to the corners, and to the safeties, that's what you can take away on the OTA process, right? And so I think you had some really good plays, and just running into a pile. I mean, there were some times where the defense got fooled a little bit, and you saw some runs get to the second and third levels. You know what I'm saying, with Kendra, and then I think it was Jacob Caboti that had a really good run too. Or Mims for sure. And so, I think those are things that you're going to have to go and learn through. But, I think the DeMario play is what stood out, is the fact that, Carr didn't have much of a choice there because of what DeMario's intelligence, guy's 35, doing his thing.
He's seen it, man.
Yeah, he's seen this movie before. He's seen he's seen the ending before, you know what I mean? Just like people think I can predict the future somehow, but yeah, it's just, I don't know that there was tons of takeaways from the defense other than like the play action did trip them up a little bit. Maybe they weren't expecting it, or maybe they just were, some communication breakdowns. But I think that's also the point, is that you're seeing that in practice. So now you can learn and identify. I think the communication was also good out there too, which is, of course, you want to say that, you want to think that, but it's a thing, right? You want to have communication. That's like any sport you play one-on-one, is you have to communicate. And so it's good to see out there. And one of the things too is Isaiah Stallbird kind of running some of the middle or the defense too.
Yeah.
That was a little bit. I told you, Stallbird's my guy. You know what I'm saying? And so he almost had that pick, and I was ready for him to do it. But giving a guy like him some responsibility, and of course we'll see it because everybody's gonna probably get a crack or shot at it and see stuff. And so, otherwise it was pretty self-explanatory. It's pretty, vanilla, I guess, in some aspects. But anything else stood out to you that you saw?
No, I think those are the biggest. Yeah, I think those are the biggest things. Just to highlight kind of the Jordan Howden part of all this. The reason why we're saying that we're not surprised to see Jonathan Abram taking snaps next to Tyrann Mathieu isn't because there's anything wrong with Jordan Howden. It's just that Jordan Howden, I think they see as more of a deep coverage post safety player, not a come down in the box and like crack some skulls type player like a Jonathan Abram is. And so if you want somebody that could be a banger down low, like that's what it is that he ends up being able to do for you, for your defense. So when we say that we're not surprised to see Jonathan Abram there, that's not us saying anything negative about Jordan Howden. It's just that like the role of a strong safety, Jonathan Abram fits extremely well.
Yeah, and you saw that last season. I mean, you saw what he was able to do.
Oh yeah, those last two games. Oh my goodness.
He was incredible. Jeez, I mean, he was just somebody that I think that he just has an opportunity, and he's such a likable guy. I think it's what's tough is that you look at the track history or the pick where he got picked and all that other stuff, and just the fit. I mean, you see the Saints take a lot of these guys that come over here and excel. Like Janoris Jenkins was a prime example.
Isaac Yiadom,
Eli Apple, Isaac Yiadom. I mean, you see them maximize. Well, I mean, look, he
was good for a little bit. He was good for a little bit. He really was. Look, Delvin Bro told me. Yeah, Delvin Bro told me that when they first got Eli Apple, that Dennis Allen was finally able to deploy the defense that he wanted to be able to deploy, and so he did make a difference there up until he didn't. But he did make a difference there for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. You knew holding, just like Brandon Browner holding number 39. It's like Eli Apple. He's going to do something, but whatever. And his mom will come after you for saying it. So it happens. Greg's giving us some love. I can't tell you enough. Thank you. I'm not going to sit here and say we're the best, man. They got some guys that do some fantastic work out there. We know a bunch of them, and it's just we really appreciate you supporting and all you guys for taking the time and
for sure.
All that fun stuff. Like, subscribe, share the news, the good news that we're here, and just two quirky guys that just like talking about football. We're not trying to be professional. We're not trying not really professional, but we just have fun doing what we do. You know what I'm saying? And so and Steve asked for Charlie Smyth. Man, the Charlie Smyth hive is real thing. I'm excited. I am excited to see him kick in camp, and so or kick maybe next time in OTAs. But I think for him, he's got a whole country that's rooting for him. And so I think that's
So
pretty
cool,
awesome.
man. That's so cool.
This is Brandon Brown. Oh man, Ross. Pretty sure Eli Evans have everything to New Orleans. Either.
Yeah, I'm not surprised by that though. I'm not surprised by that. I don't think New Orleans thanked Eli Apple either, so I guess that's fine.
Yeah, right. Just like what happened with Michael Thomas, real quick. He was like, "Move on, real quick." That's tough.
Equinemius St. Brown has his number and everything already.
Right. He was off the team roster, free agent stuff, all sorts of things. But that's a different thing. Unrelated, but a good question. David asked, "What game would you recommend a New Englander head down to see and must see?
Ooh.
Never been down except preseason 2012." That was a crazy time because I remember 2012. I don't remember if it was 2012 or 2010. I don't remember. It was the year Joey Harrington was playing. That's how long ago it was. He was in a preseason game. And all I remember was Jeremy Shockey turning around to us and he was like, shrugged his shoulders because Harrington kept getting sacked and stuff. I'm like, this is the craziest thing. What were you saying, though?
I was about to say 2012 was the suspension season, too, which was wild. Good game. Well, I mean, there's the Sean Payton return game. That's going to be loaded. It's going to be a very emotional game. Thursday it's going to be a very it's Thursday night football game. So it's cool to see the primetime stuff and everything like that. You get longer breaks in between for you to run the concessions and stuff like that. Thanks to the TV timeouts and all that.
Yep.
I think that's a pretty steady one. Outside of that, the Atlanta game, I mean, it's going to be good. The Atlanta game at home, that one's going to be good.
Yeah, I don't know if I'd throw Eagles out there. I don't know what this team is going to be like in week 3. I'd expect
nothing too early.
Yeah, nothing too early. I think the Broncos game is probably the game. I'm looking at Browns. I mean, Rams, if you can get enough fans in here and the team's doing well, I think that's going to be one of the more underrated games because the Saints have a lot to prove there, and it's the Rams, and they used to be rivals, and obviously about all the other stuff. And even if you want to sneak one in late, Raiders game might be entertaining as well. But
that's a Derek Carr special right there.
Yeah,
that's what that should be.
They were in base, all base, no nickel.
All
today.
base. Yeah.
So absolutely. All your base are belong to us. That's exactly what it is.
Should we just drive home the Taliese Fuaga at left tackle and Trevor Penning at right tackle thing? I know we kind of mentioned it.
Yeah, let's go there. I mean, let's talk about it. I mean, again, I think it's something that is a thing, and we've said it. Again, Fuaga playing at left tackle is not surprising. If you guys pay attention, if you've listened to us for sure, but if you saw Dennis Allen, that was the first thing he said coming out of the draft, that Fuaga is going to play at left and right tackle. He wasn't going inside.
Shots at both. Yeah.
They were going to give him shots because they know he can play right tackle. He can. He's going to be an amazing right tackle if he goes there. Left tackle, he's got to work out some of the kinks, but a guy like him, and Trevor, I mean, the plan was for him to play at left tackle, but again, they're going to cross train. They're going to see how it shakes out, is what Dennis said, is we're going to see what happens, obviously. And it's hard because until you get live action, and that's why I'm really looking forward to joint practices when the 49ers, that's going to be a really good test for them to see what they're made of as well. But you're not going to see that really play in until you get to training camp. But your thoughts on Fuaga and Trevor Penning?
Yeah, I think it's still a level of information gathering. Offensive line coach John Benton was like, look, we wanted to give Trevor Penning a fresh start. And part of that fresh start was actually moving him over to right tackle. He kind of mentioned right tackle was going to be the plan for him no matter what they drafted in the first round, to kind of give him an opportunity there. I don't know if that means long-term or if that just meant for OTAs and spring. You know what I mean? Right. So we'll see where it goes. But if nothing else, it's information gathering that provides opportunity for three different things. It provides opportunity for you to know whether or not you actually want to go Fuaga at left tackle and Trevor Penning at right tackle. It gives you the base option that you already had, which was Penning at left tackle as well as Fuaga at right tackle. You might just find, okay, well, this is great to know, but this is what we're going to do. And then it also kind of opens up an opportunity for you, John. And I don't want this to get run with, but I'm going to say it anyway. If there's a surprise that Ryan Ramczyk actually plays in 2024 and you want to make sure you have the best left tackle option, I don't think that's going to happen. It doesn't sound like things are, I mean, even John Benton referred to, according to Matt Paris over at NOLA.com, even referred to Ryan Ramczyk, I think he meant to say, as an injury casualty at this point. And so we'll see, what that all means. Dennis Allen said that he would probably have a better indication of what's actually going to happen with Ryan once they get into training camp. But it leaves all of those different options open for you to be able to say, I want my best left tackle, and I want my best right tackle, I want my best left guard, my best center, and my best right guard. And this is what you have to do to be able to make sure you're able to accomplish that.
No, I agree, and I think I'll go a little step further too. Is the guys behind them, because we put so much emphasis on the first ones, and then Saldiveri at left guard is one thing, but the second look up lineup was Landon Young was playing left tackle. Now he's played left, he's played right, he started at left, he started at right, and so again, I've said don't sleep on him, because I think he's a quality piece of depth that can start for this team. But like Shane Lemieux at left guard, that's somebody to keep an eye on. And then Lucas Patrick, who they just picked up. We didn't really talk about him, but
he played a lot of center today.
Yeah, a lot of center. And then Kyle Hergel was at right guard. I thought that was a little bit interesting. Again, guy they got from Boston College. And then Justin Herron was the other one that was a free agent that spent time with the Raiders. And so I think this point of the year, and with everything that goes on, you're just trying to figure out who's going to go where and what that's going to look like, who's going to adapt, who's going to pick it up fast. And it starts with the playbook. It starts with all this offensive look and the athleticism of a lot of these guys. Again, you look at this offensive line makeup. This is a more athletic group. It's not just a bunch of Sean Payton used to call it mass and whatever rhymes with mass, you know what I'm saying? But I don't get that sense here. And of course, again, like I touched on earlier, Bass.
Mass in class.
Right. But it's noticeable. It's noticeable that you don't have this big jumbo offensive lineman out there necessarily. You just got a little bit more athleticism there, and guys that are built a different way. And so I'm interested to see, but again, I'm not going to get too wrapped up in the pinning stuff. I've seen it all. I've seen everybody taking this Fuaga stuff or this pinning stuff and just running wild. It's like, stop, the Michael Jordan thing. Stop it. You know what I mean? It's just that type of thing. And so you won't know until we get into training camp, guys. I mean, this is just it. We can talk to Trevor. We can talk to Taliese. We can talk to all these guys, and they can say the things, and the coaching can say the things, which is positive to hear. Don't get me wrong. But until you get in live bullet situation or, a firing squad or whatever you want to call it, then we'll know. Then we'll know how he handles the speed. A guy like a Chase Young, if he can get in the training camp, which, oh, by the way, Dennis Allen talked about it, and, yesterday and at the golf classes, that he's right on where he should be. He's at the facility. He's doing rehab stuff. He's going through walkthroughs. And so I would anticipate seeing him in training camp, sooner rather than later, if you will. But this offensive line has to work. It has to come together. And so we're going to find out.
And I think the best way for you to make the offensive line work is to not be concerned right now about filling out your depth chart by here's who's playing left tackle, here's who's playing left guard, so on and so forth. I think what you're trying to do is figure out who could play where if we needed them to. I think that's the big thing, is that you're not trying to put names under positions, you're trying to put positions under names. And I think that's what they're doing a good job of right now in terms of their ability to move guys around. And I think we'll still see it in training camp. Like, they'll move everybody around all throughout training camp. They always have. They'll do it at linebacker, they'll do it at defensive line, they'll do it at offensive line. Like, I think you're definitely going to continue to see that.
Absolutely. And since we're starting, look fine. I mean, again, there's not much we can say too much about Saldiveri and Lemieux. You know what I'm saying? They look the part. I mean, it looks good, but you don't really.
They look athletic. They looked comfortable in the scheme.
They look like an offensive lineman.
Yeah, but like it's so tough to be like, oh yeah, no, he looked great when they're not actually trying to hit each other. You know what I mean? Like, it's just, that's tough. But I would agree with you. They look the part and they look comfortable with the scheme.
Yeah. And I think that's a big takeaway. DJ asked us, just shifting gears out of Carr, Haener, and Rattlesnake. Arizona Rattler. That's what I'm going to call him. Which looks like he just got in a conversation. We talked about it earlier. Haener definitely, I think, had probably the best day. Rattler struggled a little bit. Carr looked pretty good. I mean, he looked comfortable. I won't say Carr wasn't bad, but I think Haener impressed because he had the best plays of the day. I mean, he just made the throws. He made the connections. He had the better, everything. But again, it's one practice. It's one OTA. Don't go running off thinking that this solved anything, just like Dennis Allen said, it's like, we're not crowning anybody this time of year. We're not doing any of that. It's nothing is set in stone. But it's just good to have Saints football back, and I think that's the big takeaway there. Any other notes because that you have from today? Because again, I got tons, and it's the nitty gritty. Look, this is literally what I sit there 2 pages worth. I've seen that before. Not like you'll read my chicken scratch and all that fun stuff, but touch on the coaching, we touched on the offense, we touched on
we hit on a lot
tempo,
of stuff. Blake Grupe was 7 of you
Marshon.
said you mentioned that Blake Grupe hit all of his kicks. Just to put a number to it, he was 7 of 7. I can say that Derek Carr was 7 of 8. Jake Haener was 7 of 8, and then Spencer Rattler was 4 of 8 with an interception.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's all it is. And you saw some good things here. You saw some not so good things. And the big thing for us is what I would say as we get close to closing here. What does it look like next week? Does somebody like a Rattler improve? Does Jake Haener continue his what he picks up from where he was, or does he regress? Does Derek look even more comfortable? Is the plan still the same with the offensive lineman? Do we see more a nickel look? Who's going to play in the slot? Do we see some of these other guys returning? Those are all things that if you're looking at the sample size now, today, this is the type of stuff I'd be looking at next week. Not what exactly happens, but are these the same patterns, the same thing that continues to happen, or do we see some difference?
Yep. Yeah, exactly. Sometimes what changes is just as telling as what stays the same and everything. And so there's a real opportunity to see that, especially right now where you're comfortable making all these different adjustments and trying guys at different places and stuff like that. Cause you're not going to make or break anybody in OTAs and everything. So this is a real opportunity to be able to do that. So I'm excited to see that. And I hope we get to see the other kickers and punters next week too. That could be fun just to see, those guys as well.
Yeah. We got legitimate competition. That's all I can tell you. But again, I talked about Hedley early. We said it to each other that I think he, based off of today, it was good. It was positive. Is that the same thing next week? And is that just we're just kicking it to kick it, or are we changing up the style a little bit? Man, we did talk about AT a little bit, but I think Perry looked pretty strong.
Great.
I guess he just,
I thought he looked really good.
Dude's awesome. I was talking to him in the locker room. He said he did a lot of traveling this summer, just going. He told me you appreciate this. He said he went to California for the first time just a few weeks ago. And so he's got a family, he's got kids and stuff. He said his family's out in Florida and stuff. But, A.T. Perry, I think here's what I would ask. Perry, people have made up a bunch about who's going to be the starting guys, but is A.T. Perry a lock for number 3? I know we went through the exercise that said who's your starting 5, and we kind of had some thoughts there, but would you pencil in A.T. Perry at number 3 right now, or would you kind of have some reservations, say, oh, I want to see this first or see that first before I make that call?
I think 3. I think even at a later point, I think wide receiver 3 is going to change based on game plan and all these other things. So I think some days it'll be A.T. Perry, some games it'll be Cedric Wilson. It just depends on where they want that third option to be. What I will say is that I do think that A.T. Perry deserves at least first crack at the X receiver, the weak side, all by himself, over on the outside type of guy. That's where I think that he deserves some early votes. And so that's where I would say that I think wide receiver 3 and him being the third option of the offense, that's going to change depending upon the game plan. But I think he should be the number 1 guy, or the first guy in line, at least, to start outside opposite Chris Olave at that X receiver position, effectively playing some version of Michael Thomas's former role, whatever this version of this offense is for that.
And you saw it last year. He can make contested catches, which we didn't even point out that Chris Olave's catch, that big highlight of the day, was a contested catch. So I don't know, maybe wide receiver 1 season loading, but I think A.T. Perry deserves a shot. I think that he's excited. And look, based off of what you saw last year, I think there's reason to be excited about him. I think I would pin him in at wide receiver 3 right now. And I get they got some of the veterans, and we still got a whole lot of ways to go and stuff. But, I think AT, a lot of people sleep on him and just think that, he has the tools, he has the ability, he has the ball skills. This guy was really dominant at Wake Forest. He was supposed to be a day 2 pick, but these character concerns quote
unquote.
unquote, which never made sense in the first place, or was what dropped his stock. And just like Spencer Rattler, he wasn't supposed to be in the 5th round, but he was, and so that their loss is the Saints gain. And so I'm looking forward to that for sure. Bro asked another question way too early, but if we're choosing defensive end, this is a good question. They are crowded at defensive end group. When we've talked about this before too on previous shows, but it's tough. Like, who's your odd man out?
I have no idea.
I don't know if you can say it's Peyton Turner. I just don't know. I don't know if you definitely don't say Isaiah Foskey. Obviously, it's not Cam. It's not, Carl Granderson. And I don't even think it would be Tano. I just can't say Tano, because Tano
and then you got Chase Young in that room now too.
And of course, Chase Young, which I'm excited. And I think it's funny because Cam Jordan was talking about it on some of the pods. He's like, I can't wait for a package where it's him, Chase Young, and Carl Granderson. Carl Granderson, Chase Young, and Cam Jordan all rushing the passer at the same time. I think that's great, but man, I don't know, because you can't carry that many defensive ends. I just don't know if that's what it's going to be. But I mean, 6 isn't too bad, but one of them is probably going to have to play a lot more special teams. And so I think a guy like Isaiah Foskey is probably going to have a leg up, because he did play special teams a lot more last year. I think he's somebody that could do. Peyton Turner can kick inside. He can play on field goal block units as well. He's just got to stay healthy. He's got to stay healthy. He's got to stay available. And I've never wanted somebody to do so well. You know what I mean? Like, there's been some players, but I want Peyton Turner to play. Like, solid dude, but like, he just needs this season in the worst way possible. And this would be a great time for him to come to life, right? And so,
year, like all that. Everything, like it's all there for him. Yeah, I have no idea who'd be the odd man out right now. I could not in good faith answer that question. Ro, not to like throw shade at your question. I'm saying I'm throwing shade at me. Like, I could not confidently answer that question right now because we just haven't seen enough. But somebody's gonna be. I just don't know who it's gonna be just yet.
Yeah, and I don't want to write off other guys. Like, I mean, we haven't seen Nico Lalos was a preseason hero last year, right? Nate Latu, he's a new one that they picked up. Trajan Jeffcoat. We didn't even really talk about him. I mean, these are guys that I think as you get through the course of training camp, that's where you see. And of course, you're not just building your 53-man roster, you're building your 16-man practice squad too. And so I just don't know how that's going to work out. And it'll be hard because you can't cut an Isaiah Foskey because he's going to be subject to waivers. So you don't really do that, but you could technically cut a veteran and then bring him back the next day. I think that's obviously another thing too. David says he's got to go catch the Celtics. Good night. Appreciate you, man. Yeah, basketball's going on. That whole thing that's going on. Get another question here too. Running backs look today minus AK. No AK or Jamaal Williams. And again, we kind of talked on Kendre looked good. I thought Jordan Mims looked good. I saw a little bit of Jacob Cabote. He was doing some motion as well. James Robinson was around there as well. And so, again, it's interesting because when you look at it, the Saints didn't really change their running back room, right?
Nope.
Like,
I mean,
there was no, they added a couple of undrafted guys, but these are guys from last year. And I don't know if that says good things about them or what do you want to say? But I think Jamaal has his own set of skills. And I think I've seen people talk about Jamaal being the odd man out early and stuff, but maybe getting cut. But I think Jamaal has a role on this team. It just has to be defined. He's good against blitz. Yeah. And he's good at blitz pickup. Like he does the dirty crap that nobody really does, just like Foster Moreau. Foster does all the dirty work in the trenches and all that stuff that people don't know. I mean, you just look at a stat sheet and think that's what this guy does. But man, he just does so much more. Same thing with Jamaal, and so again, I don't know. We got this question again. Cam inside full time. Go back to a previous show. We talked at length about that. And that does, the short answer is no. That doesn't make sense, and all that fun stuff, man. Any other thoughts about the running back room? I mean, we're about winding down out here, but
I'll wrap up with James Robinson. I thought had really good vision in the zone run game. Did a really good job because effectively every outside zone run you have 3 options. You can bounce outside, you can bang up the middle, or you can bend back. to the opposite side. And so he did a really good job choosing the right gap. You effectively get 3 options with every outside zone run. So I thought he did a good job there. I agree. Jordan Mims looked pretty good up until the fumble, which unfortunately was like his last carry of the day.
Yeah.
It was literally the last second team carry of the day. And then he had that fumble. So outside of that, it looked really good. But I thought Kendra was most impressive, if I'm being honest. I thought he was the most impressive. And in Kubota, you could see him doing like a little bit more of the route running and all that other stuff too, as well, which is cool to see.
I hate how much I actually laugh at this inside. It's all about the base, no nickel.
I love that. I love that.
Oh, hey, here's the question. If we talk about Justin Simmons again, I mean, we're getting close to that time frame where people are going to be able to sign more free agents. I just don't know at this point. Like, we both could see a Justin Simmons. The guys like Hunter Renfrow are still out there. There's a ton of talent. I think most of these come, they're going to come before training camp. And, even like a guy, like David Johnson didn't come in until a tryout, extended tryout and stuff. And I bring him up because he just recently retired, which, if you talk about, Saints I don't say obscure Saints, but yeah, Saints legend David Johnson. But again, I just think that you look at free agents. Yes, it is a possibility. They are not done. I think there are areas they still want to add to the room. I mean, you got guys like Michael Thomas that are still out there. He's going to sign with the team. I don't know who. I've seen the rumors.
I know who it won't be.
Things. Yeah. I think there's 31 teams that could. There's one team that won't. So, I mean, take that for what you will. But I don't know. Yep. Mike just needs a new fresh start, and that's just all there is to it. And so, I don't know. It's Justin Simmons was one of our high ones. We like Dalton Risner too. But now at this point, with the other moves that they brought in, I think they're more cost efficient. I think you got more upside with these guys. So I don't know if that's a real possibility because Dalton wanted starting guard money, right? I don't know if he's going to get that, but he's going to have to probably accept another type of thing that he did with Denver and stuff. And so it's probably not a good thing for him. But I think of the possibilities, I don't know if Hunter Renfrow is still a possibility. I think it would make sense. But Justin Simmons, we've talked about it on this show. He would be the guy that I think we would both go for to help improve and solidify this defense. Here.
Yep. I would completely agree.
Yeah. All right. Here's another one. This is a decent one. Again, if y'all got a question, we can go rapid fire. Bresee beating out Khalen Saunders for a starting DT spot. I don't
play the same position.
Yeah, they don't. It's not the same. Khalen's a buck and a half. You know what I'm saying? Like he's a big dude. Yeah, not. Bresee's not that big dude. I mean, I don't know what the weight difference. Let me consult the chart real quick.
Yeah,
Khalen comes in at 324, and then Bryan comes in at 305. The build and the play style totally different.
Yeah. So Bryan Bresee typically plays what's called 3 tech, which is a guy that lines up in between the guard and the tackle. And then Khalen Saunders typically plays 1 tech, which is a guy that lines up on the opposite side between the center and the guard. So those are 2 different positions. And so I don't think you're going to see either of them competing and jostling for spots. I think you have to put Khalen Saunders and Christian Boyd in the same bucket. And then you put Bryan Bresee and Nathan Shepard in the same bucket. And then those are the ones that are really there. But I think that typically your starters are going to be guys like Khalen Saunders and Bryan Bresee as opposed to one or the other. Yep. Now, obviously, there will be times where you'll see things differently and all that kind of stuff because they're going to mix and match at that position and everything like that. But what they do responsibility-wise is a little bit different.
Yeah. I mean, that's the short answer. But, I like the thought process. I do believe Bryan Bresee is going to get more playing time, right? I think he just affects the quarterback. He does a lot of different things. I think he can. And look, Khalen, we've talked about it. I think Khalen Saunders and Nathan Shepard, we both agree they were better than I think a lot of people thought they were last year. I mean, you got to look at, they moved on from Shai Tuttle and David Onyemata, and they just weren't getting the job done as well as they were at once. And so I like the fact that they went with those guys. I think that they did the right thing in that, and then getting Bresee to add to it, I think that was a big thing. And I like the fact that Malcolm Roach was their 4th guy, and so that 4th job is up for grabs. And I think Christian Boyd probably is the guy at the moment, but don't sleep on guys like Kyler Ball, and then they added a veteran, Kendall Vickers. He could be a guy too that gives it. So we'll see. It remains to be seen. Hi, Sonny. We're wrapping up here, but hi, never too late. You can always catch the replays.
Thanks for being
on
here.
Second and Saints, and obviously don't forget to like and subscribe. And hopefully we can get to 1,000 subscribers pretty soon. We are just in crazy growth mode. But Ross Jackson, as we close out here, what is coming up on Locked On? What are you working on in this mystery lab?
Tomorrow's
Mad
episode, tomorrow
scientist.
morning. Yes, tomorrow morning's
Get your
episode's
pick.
already recorded and ready to go. And so
Man.
you'll be able to find that in the morning. So that one is taking a look at exactly what the New Orleans Saints were doing on offense that should give you a little bit of confidence about how things are going to be different. So looking at that QB2 battle and more. So that's that. And then I'll have a write-up over at Saints News Network tomorrow morning about my conversation with Keith Williams and just some more details, quotes, stuff like that from him and how he develops talent at the wide receiver position.
Cool.
What about you?
Love it. Man.
You already got observations up for everybody. Ready.
Yeah, observations and OTAs are already out. I think there's some more probably I'll digest from that. Probably some follow-up pieces just from some of the guys we talked to and some of the coaches. I think that's another one because, they'll put guys at the podium. I mean, and just paint this picture for everybody. Not like it's a mystery, but you got a podium with DA, and then we usually are made available assistants in talk. And so that's where you got guys talking to John Benton, or last week we got Riz, or I say last week, but it wasn't last week. But when we had rookie minicamp, we got Riz, and everybody was talking to Clint Kubiak, and I was talking to Riz, and you were talking to Joe Woods and stuff. And so, yeah, I mean, it's just it works out that way. So sometimes it's chaos. A lot of times it's chaos, and sometimes it's just whatever happens and whatever goes. And so, like Derek was talking, and that's where we're in the locker room. I mean, it's just it happens. Not that we don't want to talk to Derek or anything, but it's just there's a lot of things going on and moving parts and pieces. So, yeah, got to go back in some of that stuff. But man, Ross, time flies, man.
For real.
Can't thank you enough for joining us tonight, everybody, especially Ross Jackson, my illustrious co-host. And again, shout out to him for getting me Smoothie King, because I didn't him and Catherine Terrell did. Thank you for literally walking to Smoothie King to go get me a smoothie. And so I owe you some monies. But at any rate, that is going to do it for us for Second and Saints. We will be back at least by next week when another OTA session is. But, in the meantime, you never know when we might pop up. But at any rate, thank you so much for tuning in. On behalf of Ross Jackson, I'm John Hendricks, signing out for another episode of Second and Saints. Again, don't forget to like and subscribe, spread the news. We are here to stay. Thanks, guys. Have a great night. Appreciate you always.